Hey everyone, and welcome to this layout. As you can see from the thumbnail, there is a lot of frames being used. So I pretty much used all of the Pink Fresh frames all together. They went together really well, obviously, because they're the same collection. And I used one of the Instagram frame, the Instax frames in the top right there with that camera icon on it. And so what I've done is I've just placed them on the page sort of in a place where I'd like them, and then I've just pulled out a whole pile of photos. Now, if I'd planned it ahead, I probably would have done black and white photos and whatnot, but that's what I would have thought when I started. But the way I like the way it turns out with all these coloured photos. So what I did was I reached into my album that I'd got all my printed photos in it and pulled out a pile, I think 11, I have frames, 11 photos from October, just of random moments. Some are just, boring everyday moments, and others are more fun. And I figured this layout would just be like a snapshot of October last year. So you can see here I've just glued all the frames to the photos, cut them out, sort of like back in a cut file. I glued them on or used the sticky back, but even when I pulled the sticky stuff off, I still glued it just to make sure. And then I cut the photo just underneath the edge of the frame so that it wasn't sticking out. Now I've gotten my positioning here for my frames, and then I figured I'd go with the title. So that would be my next step. So I'm pulling out these pink ones, and I'm going to write October with a few lowercase and a few uppercase letters. I'm having a bit of a play with them. I figure this is a word that would look cool having that mixture. So I'm going to have a see where it's going to go. And I was thinking there to fill that space, and then I find the perfect space down here, which unfortunately is a little bit off screen for you. Sorry, guys. And then I reach in for the Dear Lizzie pink. No, they're not pink. They're little blue kind of colour stickers or alpha puffy stickers. And I'm going to write Moments. So October Moments is my title, and down there it's going to stay. However, I spare you a lot of mucking around, because I kid you not, I spent an hour and a half going back and forth, moving the frames, moving the title, and literally, I 100% swear to anything, cross my heart, hope to die kind of situation. They all end up in exactly the same place. The frames are in exactly the same, and the title is in the same spot. It's ridiculous. But before I get to moving all the frames around, I try to work out if I'm going to use a pattern paper background. I figure this would be a cool way to do it, and it looks really nice. It really looks nice on this one, and when I put the title there, it looks lovely. And I figure, but I'm just not brave enough. I just wasn't brave enough to do it. And the other thing, I was thinking at this point in time that I would type up my journaling about all these photos, sort of like a 1, 2, 1, this is what we did, 2, this is what we did, without putting the numbers everywhere. I didn't want to clutter it up like that. So I figured I could get away with the pattern paper background because I'd be typing it. But then I come to this page, and then I realise the best way to do it. And I really like the way it turns out. So I'm working out that I could do it. I'd have to do it horizontal with these stripes like this. Vertically it looked a bit funny. But then I realised that I could just probably frame it. Use that patterned paper as a border. And then I was like, oh, that's so boring. You always do that, Lauren. This is probably why I spent forever trying to work out where the frames go. Because I was in one of those moods of, I always do the same thing. I challenge myself, get myself out there. It's design team work, that kind of mentality. And I really loved the way it ended up. But oh my gosh, I was cursing it as I spent forever. I did manage to watch a whole movie while I did that, and then another movie. I literally watched 2 movies. Part of one that I, maybe the last half hour I just sat and watched after I finished. But it took me that long. And I was talking to my son and stuff. He was in my room having a play with the designing software I have on my tablet. Anyway, I get to ripping this pattern paper, and that's a pop of colour to the bottom, and it grounds the title and grounds the layout downwards rather than, because the frames are happening. The other thing, and you probably can't even notice, But for me, this is what took me a while too, was the frames I wanted to go in a little arched angle, and the three down the right hand bottom side there, I couldn't get going in, sort of like it goes in, then it curves up to that corner and then curves back down so that it's a straight curve. But they jut in and out. So it took me forever to just be like, well, that's just the way they look the best. Why does it have to be? Why are you wanting that? Anyway, sometimes we have these moments, and I'm sure hopefully you're all nodding at home going, oh my gosh, that's something I would do too. Or I've been there, done that. Anyway, we got there in the end. I've glued them all down. I'm gluing down my title. I'm loving it. It looks really good. I do see if I need more pattern paper at the top, but I decide I do not. And this is where I get a bit word happy, but it looks really good. So I go through these cardstock stickers, the Heidi Swap, I'm pretty sure the Heidi Swap stickers, the puffy stickers, the puffy thickers, and I pull out a word for each of the frames. Now I fiddle around and some of them go on a couple before they decide where they're going. But that's okay because it works really nicely just to add a little pop of interest to each of the frames. They're really good words on these stickers and whatnot, and that's really good because there's a lot of words in the collection. So you can see here they're all going in different positions on the frame, some up the top, some down the bottom, in the middle, to the side, that kind of thing. But you can see it just adds that little bit of interest. This one's going to go vertically. And that's nice. So I didn't want to add icons to it. And sometimes when you add pictures and icons and kind of things, they can draw your eye out and make that the focal point. But I wanted the whole thing to be focal, and then you have to look at each little section bit by bit. So each little frame bit by bit. So that's the way it works out in the end. I did try to add some flowers around the title, and that was just too much. Sometimes, even though it's such a busy layout, it's kind of simple in the fact that I don't have a lot. I don't have embellishment layers going on really. I have some words and a puffy sticker on at the end, and that's probably about as good as embellishment clusters go. I think 2 hearts together is another embellishment cluster on this title, and I'm doing inverted commas. So these are the Heidi Swap stickers, and these are clear ones, so it went down there really nicely. I like the yellow writing on that little light pink frame, just cutting down the excess. So it's just nice little thing to add. And this is probably, I'm not even going to say probably, I'm like a 99.9% sure that this is the most photos I've ever used on a layout. And I've made a pretty frame heavy layout before too, at least 1 or 2. So yeah, that's another good thing. But I really like this. It'd be so cool to do something along these lines. Not a frame one every time, but I like in my albums they're divided monthly. So I have at the front just a scrap piece of paper where I've scribbled down dates for photos when I've gone to print them. That way, if I want to add a date or if something comes out of order, I can quickly see where it goes in that album. And I figured, if I ever felt so inclined, I could type that up and it would have like a title page for every month. But I think this would be really cool for every month. A layout where it's got a range of photos on it and a little summary of how awesome it was. We did this and we did that and a whole pile of other things. And then you flip the page and then you're into the layouts and the project life for the month. Isn't that food for thought? So I've gone and put a word on every frame now, and I've just pulled out these lovely puffy stickers, and I'm seeing what I could get on there. So I've put a coffee cup up the top, even though we're not drinking coffee, but I figure because I don't drink coffee, I better put it somewhere. And then I find a Coke bottle or a soda bottle and I change it anyway. But I'm sure I could use it somehow. And on another layout. But I just put a couple of puffy little stickers around. I don't make sure that I got one on every single frame. I just have them on a couple of them. 3 or 4. And here's where I find a few of the hearts out of the the exclusive ephemera, and this lovely sticker. Now that just fills that little space there between the frames perfectly. It doesn't take away, it doesn't draw your eye to it and, make it such a jaunty focal point. So finding some more hearts, and I'm thinking that it needs something around the title because I'm used to having embellishment clusters around titles. But really, and there's so much in here, and this is only the second layout I've done, so there's still a lot going on in the kit. So I found this chipboard flower and I really wanted to use that, and it just doesn't make it, which is good because it doesn't need it. So layering up 2 hearts here, one's puffy, one's a cardstock ephemera piece, and add one here, and then I'm going to add some going in a diagonal up the layout from the bottom right to the top left, and I add this yellow one above the word October. It just adds it. No, I don't. I thought I was. I just literally edited this and you'd think I'd remember. But it's funny how that works. So looking for some more hearts. I've got these little ones here. And surprisingly, there's no hearts on the puffy sheets. Well, I'm pretty sure there's not because I'm pretty sure I look, but there's not. There's only those puffy ones on the thickers sheet. Which is fine because there's all cool icons on that small puffy set. It's really cool, different stuff that we don't normally get. So there goes all the hearts. Now I've got that big blank space, and you can see that is a lot of space to do some journaling. I'm going to pull out my pencil and my ruler when I find it, my T-square ruler, and I'm just going to add a whole pile of lines lightly with my pencil because I want to erase them. Now my aim for the journaling is to have it filling up that whole space, so I draw lines all the way. I don't measure in between, but I just eyeball it, just roughly the same width apart from each other from the next line. But when I go to write, I write it out first on a spare piece of paper because there's a lot of room for journaling, but I don't want to just make it up and be all fumbled and get to the halfway through and go, oh, well, I need to make up 4 more sentences and just gibber on about stuff. I do enough rambling during the day without rambling while I write. So I wrote it out on a scrap piece of paper, and then I even colour it as I'm writing. So it's sort of like this is my first draft, and then as I write it onto my page, it's my edit. I edit it down because I do write a lot, but it's nice to have that thought process, and some people might pencil it in and write it that way to make sure it fits, but I wanted it to be a bit more random and look like it was, from, I don't want to say from the heart because it is from the heart, but just out of my head, I guess, rather than I wrote it again and practice. So as I was writing to match those thicker title that we've got going on, every now and then I'd just write a capital letter randomly, or I'd write a whole word in capital letters or majority of the word in capital letters, just for a bit of fun. It goes with the theme, the collection, and it was just nice to do. It did jar with me a little. I did have to just ignore your instinct of capital letters at the beginning of a sentence or a noun, and lowercase for everything else, the stuff that you've taught when you are learning at school. But I'm glad I just sort of ignored that and continued because it just looks a little bit cool without standing out and without being like every 5th word is a capital or whatever like that. So I did just wonder if I needed just a little doodly border in the top corner, and I tried it, but it needed more black everywhere. Well, not everywhere, but on that side of the layout. So I've gone and done those 3 sides, but not fully on those 2 down sides. And I'm going to add some splatters. Oh, I do erase the pencil line. I did wait a little bit. It is a Sharpie, so it would have been dry pretty much straight away. But I wanted to make sure I didn't smudge it because it actually worked, and journaling is like that. Working is not one of my fortes. So I'm pulling out the Distress Oxide that we got last month or the month before. Yeah, last month. Yes, last month. I'm pretty sure. And I'm just going to add this ink splatters, and because I print my photos with selfie printer, I just use a wipe to wipe off any colour that I get onto the photos. Or I use a paper towel, but then later I use a wipe because I go back and add more sprinkles, ink splatters I probably should call them. And I just wanted to add that because it was looking too stark and like regimented, I guess, on that half of the page. It needed that bit of texture and that bit of messiness to make it look realistic and go together. So just adding it there. I do add a little bit in the bottom left corner of the journaling, but not too much. I didn't want it to cover the journaling, and I also didn't want it to become the whole page was full of ink splatters, because sometimes I can get carried away with that as well. But this is going to be the end. I do a couple more and wipe them off again. But I just wanted to share this layout with you today, just because I thought it was really fun the way it turned out, and I like the idea. I really love the concept of a month's moments in a glance. So let me know down below if you've done something like this, or interested to do something like this. I'd love to know. Anyway, thanks for joining me today. I'll catch you in my next video. Bye, guys.